Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me today as we delve into the intriguing and controversial study known as the Stanford Prison Experiment. Conducted in 1971 by psychologist Philip Zimbardo, this experiment aimed to explore the psychological effects of perceived power and authority within a simulated prison environment. Throughout this presentation, we will provide an in-depth analysis of the study, examine its impact on the field of psychology, and discuss our personal reaction to its ethical implication. The Stanford Prison Experiment is a well-known psychological study conducted by Stanford University in 1971. The experiment aimed to investigate the psychological effects of perceived power and authority in a simulated prison environment. The overview of the Stanford Prison Experiment, background and objectives. The Stanford Prison Experiment was conducted in 1971 by psychologist Philip Zimbardo and his colleagues at Stanford University. The primary objectives of the study was to investigate the psychological effects of perceived power and authority on both guards and prisoners in the simulated prison environment. The researcher aimed to understand how individuals adapt to the social rules and how these rules can influence behavior. Letter B. Experimental setup and procedures. The experimental involved the creation of simulated prison environment in the basement of the Stanford University Psychology Department. Volunteer participants were recruited and randomly assigned to either the role of a guard or a prisoner. The researcher designed the environment to resemble a real prison with prison cell, a central control room, and other prison-related elements. Letter C. The role-playing and random assignment. Participants were given specific instruction both their assigned rules. The guards were instructed to maintain order and enforce the rules, while the prisoners were told to follow the rules and carry out assigned tasks. The participants were fully immersed in the rules, with the guards even wearing uniform and sunglasses to anonymize their identities. The researchers aimed to observe how individuals conform to embody their assigned role. Letter D. The abrupt termination of the study. The Stanford Prison Experiment was intended to last for 2 weeks, but it was terminated after only 6 days due to the extreme and unethical behavior displayed by the guards. The guards became increasingly abusive and cruel towards the prisoner, using psychological tactics to exert control, humiliate them. The prisoners, on the other hand, began to show signs of severe distress and emotional instability. Zimbardo himself became deeply involved and had difficulty recognizing the ethical concern arising from the experiment. Ultimately, the study was halted to prevent further harm to the participant. The experiment gained significant attention and sparked controversy to its ethical implication and the psychological harm it caused to the participants. The raised important question about the ethical boundaries of the psychological research and the potential for harm when participants are placed in extreme or degrading situation. So, we're going to the reaction and analysis of this study. The Stanford Prison Experiment remains a widely discussed and debated study in the field of psychology. While it's brought attention to the power of situational factors in shaping human behavior, it also raised significant ethical concern. So, we're going to ethical concern. One of the main criticisms of the study is the ethical treatment of participants. The psychological harm inflicted upon the prisoners as well as the extreme behavior exhibited by the guards led to distress and traumas. The experiment lacked proper oversight, and the researcher themselves become engrossed in the rules that they failed to intervene appropriately. The termination of the study highlights the ethical boundaries that were crossed, emphasizing the importance of participant well-being and ethical consideration in research. So, the number 2 is generalizability and ecological validity. Another point of contentation is the generalizability of the findings. The simulated prison environment was an artificial and highly controlled setting, which may not accurately reflect real world prisons or the behavior of individuals in every situation. The participants were aware that they were part of an experiment, and this knowledge could have influenced their behavior. As a result, critics argue that the findings may have limited applicability to understand broader social dynamics. So, the role of demand characteristic, the number 3. Demand characteristics refers to participants altering their behavior to align with perceived expectation in the research setting. The Stanford prison experiment, participants may have adjusted their action to conform to the perceived expectation of the researcher. This raises questions about the validity of the findings and whether the participant behavior was genuinely a result of situational factors or the response to the experimental context. So number 4 is contribution to the understanding of social psychology. Despite its controversial nature, the Stanford prison experiment made important contribution to the field of social psychology. It highlighted the potential for individuals to conform to the social rules and the influence of situational factors on behavior. The studies shed light on the power dynamics present in institutional settings and emphasized the needs for ethical consideration and safeguards in psychological research. So, we're going to psychological findings and observation of this research or experiment. So, rapid transformation of participants. One of the most striking findings from the Stanford prison experiment was the rapid transformation of the participants. Within a short period, both the prisoners and the guard adapted their respective roles and began to internalize them. The prisoners started to exhibit signs of learned helplessness, feeling powerless, and showing signs of distress. Meanwhile, the guard quickly embraced their position of power and authority, becoming increasingly authoritarian and displaying aggressive and sadistic behavior. This rapid transformation highlighted the strong influence of social rules on individual behavior. So letter B is abuse of power and the emergence of sadistic behavior. The experiment revealed the potential for the abuse of power in situations where individuals are giving authority over others. The guards who were randomly assigned this role began to exhibit sadistic behavior, verbally and physically abusing the prisoners. The power dynamic and the absence of oversight led to the guards feeling empowered to exert control, often in dehumanizing and humiliating ways. This behavior was unexpected and showed the dark side of human nature when placed in position of power without proper check and balances. So, psychological distress and traumas experienced by subject. The participant in the experiment, particularly the prisoner, experienced significant psychological distress and traumas. Many of the prisoners developed emotional disturbances such as depression, and extreme anxiety. As a result of their treatment, some even had to be removed from the study early due to the severity of their psychological reaction. The study highlighted the potential harm that can occur when individuals are subjected to dehumanizing and abusive conditions, even the simulated environment. Letter B, influence of social rules and situational factors in behavior. The Stanford prison experiment demonstrated the power influence of social rule and situational factors on individual behavior. The participant behavior was shaped not only by their personal characteristic but also the context in which they found themselves. The study revealed how people can be easily influenced by the rules they are assigned and the social expectation associated with those roles. It is raised important question about the extent to which individual behavior is the product of personal disposition versus situational factors. The third one is the impact of the field of psychology. So, dito mapapag-aralan natin ang impact of field of psychology. So, letter A is relevance to understanding the dynamics of power and authority. The Stanford prison experiment has had significant impact on our understanding of the dynamics of powers and authority. The study demonstrated how individuals, when placed in position of power, can quickly adapt and abuse that power, leading to a range of negatively behavior. The experiment revealed the potential for ordinary people to engage in oppressive and cruel action when giving authority over others. The findings of the experiment highlighted the importance of situational factors in shaping human behavior. It shows that social rules and power differential can exert a powerful influence on individuals, often shadowing their personal values and moral compass. The understanding has been instrumental in studying phenomena such as obedience to the authority, conformity, and group dynamics, helping research recognize the potential for abuses of power in a various contexts such as institutions, organization, and even everyday interaction. So letter B is controversy surrounding the ethics of the experiment. So the Stanford prison experiment has been widely criticized for its ethical implication. The study involved significant psychological harm inflicted on the participant, including emotional distress and the erosion of their sense of self. The ethical guidance in place today emphasize the protection of human subjects from harm and prioritizing informed consent, debriefing, and the right to withdraw from the study. One of the main criticisms of the experiment was the lack of proper safeguards for the participant. The researcher, led by the Philip Zimbardo, allowed the study to continue despite clear sign of distress and abuse. The boundary between the role of the researcher and the prisoner superintendent become blurred, raising ethical concerns about the potential for harm and the responsibility of the researcher to intervene. The controversy surrounding the ethics of Stanford prison experiment has led to reassessment of research practices and the greater emphasis on the protection of participant rights and well-being. Today, institutional review boards play a crucial role in reviewing approving research proposals, ensuring that studies are conducted ethically with the participants' best interests in mind. So letter C is replication studies and their findings. Several replication studies have been conducted to examine the Stanford prison experiments findings and further understand the dynamic observed in the original study. Some of these replications have yielded similar results, demonstrating the power of the situational factors in influencing behavior. However, certainly replication studies have challenged the generalizability of the original findings. For example, a replication study conducted by Banuzizi and Mohadeli in 1971 found that Iranian students did not exhibit the same level of aggression and abuse seen in the Stanford experiment. This dispenseless highlights the role of cultural and contextual factors in shaping individual behavior and emphasize the need for caution in applying the findings universally. Replication studies have contributed to a more nuanced understanding of the experiment implication, highlighting the boundaries, conditions, and factors that can moderate those observed effects. They have prompted researchers to consider the interaction between individual differences, situational factors, and cultural context when studying power dynamics and authority. So, letter D is contribution to the development of ethical guidance for research. The Stanford prison experiment played a crucial role in shaping ethical guidance or guidelines for research involving human participants. The study ethical concern and the subsequent public outcry led to increased scrutiny and regulation of research practices. The American Psychological Association, or APA, in response to the ethical controversies surrounding the experiment, developed stricter guidelines for protection of human object or subjects. These guidelines emphasize informed consent, voluntary participation, protection from harm, and the importance of debriefing. Institutional review boards, or IRBs, now play a crucial role in ensuring compliance with ethical standards in research. The Stanford prison experiment served as cautionary tale and the reminders of the potential harm that can arise as psychological research. It has helped researchers and institutions recognize the importance of ethical considerations and need to prioritize participant well-being in any study involving human subjects. The legacy of the experiment has contributed to our ongoing discussion and improvements on ethical guidelines, fostering a more responsible and conscientious approach to psychological research. So we're going to ethical implication and criticism. Letter A is formed consent and potential harm to the participant. One of the primary ethical concerns surrounding the Stanford prison experiment is the issue of informed consent. Participants in the study were not fully informed about the nature and potential harm of the experiment. They were only informed about the general procedures and were not made aware of the potential psychological and emotional distress they might experience. Additionally, the participants were subjected to significant psychological distress and emotional trauma during the experiment. Some of them even developed symptoms of psychological distress and had to be removed from the study prematurely. The potential long-term effect of such distress on the participants were not fully considered, highlighting a lack of adequate protection for their well-being. So, letter B is the role of experimenter in perpetuating unethical behavior. Another ethical concern revolves around the rules of experimenter. Philip Zimbardo, in perpetuating an ethical behavior within the study as the prison superintendent, Zimbardo assumed an active role in shaping behavior of the participant. He did not intervene to prevent the mistreatment and abuse that occurred, even when it became evident that the participants were suffering. This blurring of this line between the rules of researcher and participant raises questions about the experimenter's responsibility to prioritize the well-being of the participants. So letter C, critics of the study, generalizability and external validity. Critics argue that the Stanford prison experiment lacks generalizability and external validity. The small sample size is 24 participants, and the facts that they were all male college students from the specific cultural background limit the extent to which the findings can be applied to the broader population. The unique settings of simulated prison environment further raises doubts about the generalizability of the findings to real-world situation. Furthermore, the behavior observed in the study may have been influenced by demand characteristics, where participants acted in ways they believe were expected of them, rather than displaying their true disposition. This raises concern about the ecological validity of the study and its ability to accurately reflect human behavior in real-world contexts. Letter D, the ethical consideration in modern psychological research. The Stanford prison experiment has significantly influenced the ethical guidelines and consideration in modern psychological research. Institutional review boards or IRBs now play a crucial role in ensuring that the study met ethical standards, particularly regarding informed consent, potentially harm to participants and protection of their well-being. Researchers now expected to fully inform participants about the nature, potential risks, and benefits of the study before obtaining their informed consent. They are also encouraged to implement safeguards to protect participants from any physical or psychological harm that may arise during the study. Furthermore, there is a greater emphasis on the importance of debriefing after a study, allowing participants to fully understand the purpose of the research, address any distress caused, and ensure their well-being. Researchers are also encouraged to carefully consider the balance between scientific knowledge gain and the potential harm or distress caused to the participants. While the Stanford prison experiment has contributed valuable insight into human behavior, it also raised significant ethical concern. These include issues related to informed consent, potential harm to participants, the role of the experimenter, and the study's generalizability. The field of psychology has since evolved to prioritize the ethical treatment of participants, with greater emphasis on informed consent, participants' well-being, and protection from harm in modern research practices. So number 5 is personal reaction and replication. So letter A is initial thoughts on the study and its ethical implication. The Stanford prison experiment is a highly controversial and influential study conducted by psychologist Philip Zimbardo in 1971. It aims to investigate the psychological effects of their perceived power in a simulated prison environment. Participants were randomly assigned the roles of guards or prisoners, and the study was intended to last for 2 weeks. However, it had to be terminated after only 6 days due to the severe psychological distress experienced by the participants. From an initial perspective, the study raises several ethical concerns. The participants, despite giving informed consent, were subjected to significant psychological harm. The guards exhibited abusive behavior, while the prisoner endured humiliation, stress, and the loss of personal autonomy. The experiment lacked adequate safeguards to protect the well-being of the participants, and the fact that Zimbardo itself acted as the superintendent, getting deeply involved the experiment, further blurred the line between the researcher and the participant. Letter B, the balance between scientific inquiry and the well-being of the participants. The Stanford prison experiment highlights the delicate balance between scientific inquiry and the well-being of participants. While scientific research is essential for advancing knowledge, it is crucial to prioritize the welfare of the individuals involved. Ethical guidelines are in place to ensure that researchers do not exploit or harm participants for the sake of scientific curiosity. In this case, the study crossed ethical boundaries as the researcher failed to intervene and protect the participants from escalating abuse and distress. The potential benefits of the study in terms of understanding human behavior in oppressive environment do not justify the extent of harm caused to the participants. This raises important questions about the ethical responsibility of researchers and the need to robust oversight in psychological studies. Insight and gain from the study's controversies. So we're going to controversies surrounding the Stanford prison experiment have provided valuable insight and led to the important discussion in the field of psychology. One of the key lessons is the potential for situation rules to strongly influence individual behavior. The study revealed how even ordinary individuals, when placed in the position of power subjected to oppressive condition, can engage abusive and dehumanizing behavior. Moreover, the study controversies highlighted the need for transparency, accountability, and replication in psychological research. The initial findings and widespread media coverage of the experiment contributed to its status as a landmark study. However, subsequent analysis and evaluation have questioned the validity and generalizability of the findings. This emphasizes the importance of conducted regular research, subjected studies to critical scrutiny, and acknowledge the limitation and potential biases that may be presented. So letter B is the last, the importance of ethical guidance in psychological research. So the Stanford prison experiment served as a powerful reminder of the vital role that ethical guidance play in psychological research. Ethical considerations are essential to ensure the protection and well-being of participants, maintain the integrity of the research process, and prevent exploitation of vulnerable population. Ethical guidelines provide the framework for researchers to follow, encompassing aspects such as informed consent, privacy, confidentiality, debriefing, and the minimization of harm. These guidelines help to establish boundaries and ensure that rights and dignity of participants are respected throughout the research process. The Stanford prison experiment ethical violations have had lasting impact on the field of psychology, leading to the development and strengthening of ethical standards. Today, research institutions, universities, and professional organizations have comprehensive guidelines and ethical review boards in place to evaluate and monitor the ethical implications of psychological research. These guidelines are critical in safeguarding the well-being of participants and maintaining the trust and credibility of the scientific community. Therefore, the conclusion, the Stanford experiment remains a significant and controversial study that has profoundly influenced the field of psychology. While it provides valuable insight into the power of social rules and situational factors on human behavior, its ethical implications continue to spark debates and discussion among researchers. As we move forward, it is essential for us to reflect on the lesson learned from this study, ensure that ethical consideration remain in forefront of psychological research. So, thank you so much for attention. I will now open the floor for any question and comments you may have.